It started like any other day on Earth, with people going about their routines unaware that history was about to be rewritten. Children were laughing in playgrounds, cars moved steadily through crowded streets, and offices buzzed with the low hum of daily work. Life was ordinary, and people assumed it always would be. But high above the clouds, where humans had only dreamed of reaching, something waited, something that would shake the world to its very core. The first warning came in the form of a transmission. At first, it seemed like an ordinary broadcast, something coming from the edge of space. Then, the words began to take shape on every screen, every device, every communication channel. Governments tried to intercept it, scientists analyzed it, and for a moment, no one knew what they were listening to. The voice was calm, almost indifferent. But every word carried a weight that made even the strongest leaders in the world shiver. Earth, the message said, you are to surrender immediately. Any resistance will be met with complete annihilation. Silence followed. In the streets, people froze, looking at their phones, televisions, and computers. Offices fell quiet. The ordinary rhythm of life stopped, replaced by a shared disbelief that spread across continents. Children stared at their parents, sensing the tension, though they could not understand the words themselves. Somewhere, a mother held her child, tighter, and an elderly man muttered under his breath, questioning if this was some kind of mistake. Leaders convened emergency meetings almost immediately. The United Nations called an urgent session, and military commanders gathered in bunkers trying to formulate a response. But the empire that had sent the message was not from Earth. Its ships hovered silently beyond the moon, enormous and unyielding, casting shadows across the Earth that no human could ignore. They were not like anything humanity had ever seen. Their size alone was intimidating, but it was the precision, the quiet confidence of their movement that truly unsettled those who watched. People argued about what to do. Some called for compliance, reasoning that survival mattered more than pride. Others refused to believe that Earth should ever bow to strangers from the stars. There were debates, loud and emotional, that echoed across the halls of power. Citizens listened anxiously, feeling helpless but hoping that someone, anyone, had a plan. Meanwhile, the general public began to notice strange changes in the sky. Satellites detected patterns forming in orbit, and telescopes revealed more than just the looming ships. There was a strange symmetry to the way they moved, a silent choreography that suggested not just military power, but intelligence, awareness, and strategy. Rumors started spreading. Could Earth survive this? Could the human race, fragile and divided as it was, stand against such a force? Amid the panic, the story of a hidden project began to resurface. For decades, Earth had been quietly preparing for threats that most people didn't know existed. Scientists, engineers, and military strategists had worked in secret, developing what was known only to a few as the Black Fleet. It was a fleet of ships unlike anything the world had ever seen, powered by technology that had been collected over generations, some salvaged from crashes that were dismissed as myths, others designed using innovations humans had only begun to understand. Most people had forgotten these stories, dismissing them as conspiracy theories or tales told to keep people dreaming. Now, however, those whispers became reality. People in control centers far removed from the chaos of everyday life began to awaken systems that had slept in silence for decades. Engineers raced against time, running final checks on equipment that had never been used. Pilots were briefed, in hushed tones, understanding that their mission could be the last chance humanity would ever have. As the hours passed, tension gripped every corner of the Earth. In homes, people stared at the night sky, unsure if they would live to see the morning. In cities, the hum of daily life continued, but the undercurrent of fear was impossible to ignore. Markets slowed, public transportation staggered, and even the air seemed heavier, as if the world itself understood the danger it faced. People clung to one another, seeking comfort in touch, in shared words, in the simple acts of humanity that persisted even in the shadow of annihilation. Leaders worked tirelessly, but even they knew that words alone would not protect Earth. They coordinated defenses, prepared emergency protocols, and issued statements meant to calm the population. But the reality was clear. The Empire had the power to wipe the planet clean in moments, and the world's conventional weapons were no match for the technology in orbit. For the first time in history, every human being felt the fragility of life in a way that could not be ignored. Amid the fear, a different emotion began to rise: defiance. Ordinary people, those with no titles, no authority, began to feel the stirrings of courage. Stories spread online of individuals and small groups, volunteering for emergency services, assisting neighbors, and even trying to understand what they could do to help. Humanity had faced disasters before, but nothing like this. The challenge was bigger than any storm, earthquake, or war. And yet, in the face of something so vast and overwhelming, a spark of unity began to flicker. In a secret underground base, far from the eyes of the world, the Black Fleet systems were activated. The engines hummed softly, a sound that no ordinary person could hear, but one that carried the weight of potential and promise. Ships that had been hidden for decades, some resting under oceans, others buried in secret hangars, now began to awaken. The technology inside them was not just human. It was a culmination of human curiosity, ingenuity, and a willingness to reach beyond the limits of imagination. Pilots prepared to board, checking instruments, running final simulations, and looking at each other with expressions that combined fear and determination. These were not soldiers in the ordinary sense. They were chosen for their skill, their courage, and their capacity to remain calm when the impossible confronted them. Every ship had been designed not just to fight, but to survive, to outmaneuver, and to protect the very people who might never know their names. As Earth's leaders watched from command centers, the Empire's countdown continued. Time moved slower with every passing second. The message remained clear: surrender, or face annihilation. Across the planet, citizens braced themselves, some praying, some holding loved ones, and some simply staring at the sky, waiting to see whether the human race would survive its first true test. In the midst of it all, one truth became evident: Earth was not ready to surrender, not fully. Even in fear, humanity was finding strength. Ordinary individuals were becoming extraordinary simply by refusing to give in. Children clung to hope even when adults faltered. Strangers helped strangers. Communities pulled together in ways that no one had anticipated. The looming presence of the Empire had forced humans to confront not only fear, but the courage that lay buried beneath ordinary life. The first day ended, with no explosion, no invasion, no immediate destruction. Yet the tension remained thick. People slept fitfully, dreams haunted by visions of shadowy ships in the sky. The leaders of nations stayed awake, coordinating, planning, and hoping. And beneath it all, the Black Fleet waited, ready to rise when the moment demanded. Humanity had been shaken to its core, but in that shaking it had begun to awaken. This was only the beginning. The Empire had demanded surrender, but Earth for the first time began to feel that surrender might not be the answer. Hidden in secret places, human ingenuity and courage prepared to defy the impossible. The stars above seemed indifferent, but the people below were not. Somewhere in the world, a technician adjusted a control, a pilot gripped the steering of a ship, and a world held its breath. History was unfolding, and though no one yet knew the outcome, every human being shared the same thought: survival was not enough. Humanity would fight, and it would not bow quietly. By the end of the first day, the Earth was a planet on edge, but alive with the promise of resistance. Across continents, hearts beat faster, eyes watched the sky, and minds raced with possibility. Ordinary life had been interrupted, yet people discovered within themselves a spark they never knew existed. The Empire had arrived, its demand clear, but humans were already beginning to awaken, preparing for a story that would be told for generations. It was the first day of a new chapter, and even in fear, humanity had started to rise. While the world was still grappling with the Empire's shocking demand, deep beneath Earth's surface and oceans, a story that had long been hidden began to surface. For decades, A secret had been kept from the public, buried under layers of secrecy, dismissed as rumor or forgotten altogether. It was a story of preparation, of ingenuity, and of hope, a hope that most people didn't even know they needed. That hope was known only to a few as the Black Fleet. The Black Fleet was not just a collection of machines. It was humanity's response to the unknown, a creation born from curiosity and fear alike. Years ago, strange objects had fallen from the sky, some mere fragments, others intact but unrecognizable. Scientists studied them in secret, understanding that the knowledge contained within could change the course of human history. Governments invested quietly, funding research facilities hidden in remote corners of the planet. Engineers, pilots, and visionaries worked in secrecy, building ships unlike any that had ever existed. These vessels were fast, resilient, and equipped with technology that seemed impossible. Some were designed for combat, others for stealth, but all were united by one purpose: to protect the planet. Most people had thought of these tales as myths, stories told by the few who believed in alien encounters and government secrets. Some laughed at the idea of a hidden fleet ready to defend Earth. Others dismissed it as paranoia. But now, with the Empire hovering above the moon and threatening total annihilation, the whispers became real. The world's leaders realized, perhaps too late, that humanity had a secret weapon, one that had been waiting patiently, silent and invisible, until the moment came. In underground hangars carved into mountains and deep beneath the ice of remote regions, the Black Fleet lay dormant. Ships of every shape and size rested silently, their hulls gleaming in dim light, engines humming softly with power that had not been used for decades. Pilots suited up, their movements precise, their faces tense with anticipation. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were pioneers, explorers, and innovators, trained to handle machines that were more than machines. Every ship had a purpose, every crew member a role, and every system a history that tied it to the dreams and fears of countless people who had worked in secret for years. The awakening of the Black Fleet began quietly. Engineers monitored every system, checking energy flows, propulsion mechanisms, and communications networks. Some ships had been submerged in water for decades, preserved with technology that kept them ready for the moment humanity would need them most. Others had been hidden in remote deserts, under layers of rock and sand, waiting for the day they could rise. When the final checks were complete, the fleet would be ready to emerge from its hiding places and face a force no human had ever fought before. Meanwhile, back on the surface, the world reacted to the knowledge that such a fleet existed. News leaked slowly, first in hints and then in controlled announcements. Some people were skeptical, unable to believe that humans could create such power in secret. Others were inspired, feeling a spark of hope that had been missing since the Empire's arrival. Across cities and towns, conversations shifted. Fear remained, but it was now tempered with anticipation. People began to believe that survival was possible, not just because of luck, but because humans had prepared for this exact moment in ways that no one could have imagined. The pilots and engineers understood the gravity of their task. These ships were more than tools. They were symbols of resilience. Every system had been designed to respond to threats that could not be predicted. Some ships could disappear and reappear elsewhere, moving faster than the eye could follow. Others were armored to withstand attacks that would destroy ordinary machines. They were built not only to fight, but to endure, to protect, and to give humanity a chance to survive against a power that seemed unstoppable. As preparations continued, the crew learned to synchronize with their vessels. The ships responded almost like living beings, attuned to the intentions and emotions of those inside them. Pilots spent hours learning the subtle nuances of the controls, discovering that courage, patience, and focus were as important as skill. Engineers monitored every connection, every circuit, and every energy source, ensuring that nothing would fail at the critical moment. There was no room for error, and yet, despite the pressure, a sense of quiet determination filled the bases. People worked tirelessly, motivated not by fame or recognition, but by the knowledge that their actions could save millions of lives. Even as the Empire's countdown continued above, the world began to notice small signs of change. Satellites detected unusual activity near Earth's surface, and unusual energy patterns appeared in the skies. People began to see faint glimmers of light where none should exist, movements that seemed impossible at first glance. Scientists and astronomers tried to explain these phenomena, but even they were astonished. The Black Fleet was awakening, slowly and deliberately, emerging from places humanity had long forgotten. It was as though the planet itself was preparing to fight back, lending its strength to the humans who had been chosen to defend it. In cities and towns, people experienced a mix of fear and awe. They could feel something extraordinary happening, even if they did not understand it. Families gathered near windows pointing at distant lights and shadows that moved with purpose across the skies. Children asked questions they could not fully comprehend, and parents offered answers that were honest but hopeful. Conversations across the world began to shift from despair to determination. Humanity had been cornered, but it was no longer powerless. There was a force quietly awakening, hidden from view but ready to rise. The Empire, observing from above, could not understand what was happening. Their communications picked up strange signals, patterns that did not match anything in their database. Their scouts reported movements that seemed coordinated, almost intelligent. Commands were issued, and yet the Empire's forces found themselves facing something they had not anticipated. Preparation born of knowledge, secrecy, and unwavering resolve. They had assumed that Earth would surrender without resistance. They had underestimated the patience and ingenuity of the humans they thought were primitive. Deep in the Black Fleet's control rooms, crews coordinated their ships, running simulations and practicing maneuvers. Every detail mattered. Timing, precision, and strategy were tested and refined. Pilots trained their reflexes, engineers monitored the flow of energy, and commanders devised plans that could adapt to every possible threat. It was a race against time, and the stakes could not have been higher. Humanity's survival depended not on luck, but on the combined skill, courage, and determination of every person involved. By the end of the day, the awakening of the Black Fleet had changed everything. Earth's people no longer felt entirely helpless. Fear was still present, but it was now joined by hope and resolve. Humans could see that they were not completely alone in their struggle. Somewhere beneath oceans, mountains, and deserts, their defenders waited, ready to rise. The planet had been quiet for centuries, but now it seemed alive with anticipation, as if it too was preparing to take a stand against a force that had threatened to erase it. At night, the world paused. People looked at the sky, aware that the Empire's ships remained in orbit, but also sensing the hidden potential that had been awakened on Earth. They could not see the Black Fleet directly, but its presence was felt. Engineers checked instruments in hidden bases, pilots reviewed procedures, and commanders calculated every variable. Humanity had been forced into an impossible situation, but it was responding with a courage that no one could deny. The Black Fleet was not just a collection of ships, it was a statement. It was a signal that Earth would not surrender without a fight, that humans were capable of extraordinary action when pushed to the edge, and that even in the face of fear, hope could take form. By the time the second day of the Empire's demand ended, the world had begun to believe in something it had long forgotten, that humanity could rise to meet challenges far greater than itself. The Black Fleet had awakened slowly but surely, and with it the first glimmers of resistance against a force that seemed unstoppable. The Empire had sent a message of destruction, but Earth's response, though still hidden, was already forming. People slept with hearts pounding, dreams filled with lights and movements they could not explain, and minds racing with the knowledge that history was unfolding. Humanity was readying itself, quietly and deliberately, to stand against the impossible, and the Black Fleet was at the center of that awakening. The Empire's message had set the world on edge, and now time was slipping away faster than anyone could control. The countdown had begun, 72 hours. That was all Earth had before the threat turned into something real, something unavoidable. Across the planet, Every nation felt the same crushing weight. The universe had sent a warning, and failure was not an option. Governments moved with urgency, military leaders barked orders, and citizens tried to hold on to normalcy. Though deep down they knew the ordinary life they had taken for granted was gone. Everywhere the fear was palpable. Families gathered, holding their children close and whispering words of reassurance, though they themselves felt the terror creeping into their bones. People stared at the sky, scanning the heavens for signs, any hint that would indicate what the Empire's forces might do next. News channels broadcast updates nonstop, their reporters struggling to stay calm as they described the growing formations of alien warships hovering beyond the moon. Satellites picked up strange energy readings. The entire planet seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. But underneath the surface of fear, something remarkable was happening. People who had once felt powerless began to find courage. Ordinary citizens volunteered in ways they had never imagined. From first responders readying emergency shelters to scientists volunteering extra hours in laboratories that were suddenly deemed critical to survival. Communities banded together, in small but meaningful ways. Strangers helped strangers. Meals were shared, supplies were distributed. Conversations about panic and despair gradually shifted to discussions about resilience, about what humans could do to protect themselves, their families, and their planet. Meanwhile, in the hidden bases of the Black Fleet, preparations reached a critical stage. Ships that had been dormant for decades hummed with life, their engines vibrating softly with energy that seemed almost alive. Pilots moved through corridors with precision, running final simulations and reviewing every detail of maneuvers they had practiced countless times in training. Engineers worked tirelessly, monitoring systems, checking propulsion, and making adjustments to ensure that nothing would fail. Every movement, every calculation mattered. This was no ordinary mission. The stakes were the survival of an entire species. The Black Fleet was a marvel of human innovation and determination. Its ships were not built merely as tools of destruction. They were built to endure, to adapt, and to protect. Some could disappear and reappear in an instant, slipping past detection with speeds that seemed impossible. Others were armored to withstand attacks that would destroy ordinary vessels. They were equipped with weapons, shields, and systems that blended human ingenuity with the secrets humanity had gathered from the cosmos over the years. These ships carried with them the dreams, fears, and sacrifices of countless people who had worked quietly in secret for decades. As preparations continued, the tension above ground was mirrored in the skies. The Empire's fleet remained in orbit, vast and imposing, their ships forming patterns that conveyed power and organization. Observers on Earth could see their outlines against the darkness, a reminder that the threat was immediate and immense. Every government on the planet scrambled to interpret the alien movements, trying to anticipate attacks, understand formations, and predict the Empire's intentions. They worked tirelessly, knowing that a single miscalculation could cost millions of lives. Ordinary citizens also felt the pressure. Markets slowed as people stocked up on essentials. Roads became crowded as people tried to reach loved ones. Emergency services were overwhelmed, yet they continued to operate guided by training, courage, and an unshakable commitment to help others. Fear was everywhere, but so was determination. People realized that survival would not come from luck alone. Humanity needed to work together, and in that realization, an unexpected strength began to grow. Within the hidden bases, pilots continued to bond with their ships. Each vessel responded almost as if it were aware, attuned to the intentions and emotions of its crew. Pilots trained not only with their hands and minds but with their instincts, learning to move in harmony with machines that were more than machines. Engineers made final adjustments, checking every energy flow, every circuit, every system that could mean the difference between life and death. Commanders studied maps, calculated trajectories, and devised plans that accounted for every possible scenario. Nothing was left to chance. As the hours ticked down, the world became a stage for anticipation. People slept little, if at all, their minds racing with thoughts of what might come. Some prayed, Others wrote letters or recorded messages, preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. Conversations everywhere reflected a blend of fear, hope, and defiance. Even in cities overwhelmed by panic, small acts of courage persisted. Neighbors helping neighbors, volunteers guiding the frightened, and families comforting children who sensed more than they could understand. Humanity was discovering that even in the shadow of extinction, there was strength in unity, resilience, and shared determination. The Empire, observing from above, could not fully grasp what was happening. Their sensors detected unusual energy, signatures near Earth's surface, movements in hidden locations that did not correspond to ordinary human activity. Reports of strange signals reached command centers. Unknown variables appeared, and the confidence of their forces wavered. They had expected a planet that would surrender quickly, a species incapable of organized resistance. But Earth was proving them wrong. Humanity had been quiet, patient, and observant, preparing in ways the Empire had never anticipated. Beneath oceans, in deserts, and under mountains, the Black Fleet stood ready. Ships vibrated with latent energy, systems humming as if aware of the moment approaching. Pilots ran through final checks, engineers monitored every function, and commanders coordinated with precision. The fleet was a reflection of human ingenuity and courage, a manifestation of centuries of preparation, hope, and determination. It was not just a weapon, it was a promise that humanity would not bow without a fight. Meanwhile, ordinary people experienced signs of change they could not fully explain. Strange lights appeared in the sky. Energy patterns that did not match natural phenomena flickered above the horizon, and movements in unexpected places hinted at the awakening of something powerful. Communities looked up together, pointing to flashes of brilliance and strange shadows, sensing that the world was no longer ordinary. Children asked questions, eyes wide with wonder, and parents explained as best they could, sharing hope even in the midst of fear. Across the planet, conversations shifted from panic to anticipation, from helplessness to preparation. Humanity was finding courage in the unlikeliest of places. As the final day of the countdown approached, tension reached its peak. Governments issued statements meant to calm populations, while military commanders issued orders meant to organize defense. Ordinary citizens took measures to protect themselves, seeking shelter, gathering supplies, and reaching out to loved ones. Every corner of the planet seemed to pulse with anxious energy, and yet, beneath it all, a quiet determination persisted, a shared belief that survival was possible, that humanity could rise to meet the impossible. The Black Fleet, poised in hidden locations, mirrored this determination. Ships prepared for deployment, engines humming, energy coursing through circuits designed for endurance and precision. Pilots synchronized their actions with their vessels, learning to anticipate every movement, every reaction. Engineers ensured that every system was flawless, understanding that even a minor failure could be catastrophic. Commanders coordinated strategies, planning maneuvers that relied on intelligence, skill, and courage. Every detail mattered. Humanity's survival depended on preparation, coordination, and the unbreakable will to fight. As the countdown neared its final hours, the world's population braced itself. People looked to the sky, wondering when the first strike might come, yet they also sensed that something remarkable was happening below the surface. The Black Fleet had been awakened, ready to rise. For the first time, humans felt the possibility that they might resist, that they might survive, and even that they could turn fear into action. Humanity's courage had begun to match the enormity of the threat, and for the first time the Empire's message of annihilation seemed less certain. By nightfall, the planet was tense, but alive with anticipation. Communities held together, families comforted each other, and citizens waited, hearts pounding. In hidden bases, crews ran final simulations, checked equipment, and prepared for the mission that would define their species. Humanity had reached a tipping point, where fear met courage, uncertainty met determination, and survival met preparation. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined, and the next day would bring the first true test. The final moments of the countdown approached, and every human being could feel it in their own way. People looked up at the stars, wondering what would come. Pilots and engineers prepared for deployment, their faces tense but determined. Across continents, citizens whispered prayers, shared embraces, and resolved to face whatever was coming. Fear remained, but so did hope, courage, and the unshakable belief that humanity could rise to meet a threat unlike any in its history. The stage was set. The moment had finally arrived. After decades of silence, preparation, and secrecy, the Black Fleet began to awaken in ways that no one on Earth had ever imagined. Deep beneath oceans, hidden in deserts, and tucked under mountains, the ships moved with a purpose that was almost alive. They did not hum softly this time. They pulsed with energy, engines vibrating with latent power that had been waiting for this exact moment. Every crew member, engineer, and pilot knew that they were about to witness something extraordinary, something that could change the course of history forever. Above the surface, people could feel it too, even if they could not see it directly. Strange vibrations ran through the air, subtle yet powerful, as though the planet itself was signaling that something incredible was happening. Lights flickered across the skies in patterns that defied explanation. Citizens paused in streets and homes, pointing to the horizon and whispering to each other. Fear remained, but it was now mixed with awe and wonder. Humanity was about to see a force it had never imagined, and deep down, every person knew that their world was about to change. The first ships rose from the hidden bases quietly, almost reverently. In the oceans, massive vessels broke through the water like ancient leviathans awakening from slumber. In deserts and mountains, hangar doors opened, revealing ships that seemed to stretch endlessly into the sky. The Black Fleet was not just a military force. It was a statement of human ingenuity, courage, and the relentless will to survive. Each vessel had been designed to move with precision, to strike with power, and to defend with resilience. Pilots marveled at the sensation as the ships responded to their commands with speed and accuracy, almost as if the machines themselves understood the importance of the moment. Meanwhile, ordinary people continued to watch the sky, unaware of the full scale of what was emerging. In cities and towns, families and communities gathered on rooftops and in open spaces, trying to catch a glimpse of the lights and shadows that danced in ways that defied natural explanation. Children whispered to one another, wide-eyed, while parents tried to offer calm even as their own hearts raced. The Black Fleet was awakening, and humanity could feel it, even if it could not yet understand it. The Empire, observing from orbit, could sense the change immediately. Their sensors detected the activation of ships that had been dormant for decades. Communications across the fleet were filled with confusion and alarm. Commands were issued to investigate, to attack, to subdue. But even their advanced technology struggled to interpret what was happening. The Black Fleet was not only moving, it was adapting, responding and organizing itself with a coordination that no one had anticipated. The Empire had assumed Earth would surrender. They had assumed that humans would be helpless. They had underestimated the patience, ingenuity, and determination of the planet they thought they could crush. Back on Earth, the pilots began coordinating with each other, forming formations that had been drilled in simulations but now became real. Ships moved through clouds and oceans, appearing and disappearing in ways that seemed impossible. The engines generated storms that swirled around them, lightning crackling in the clouds as the vessels passed. It was a display of power, beauty, and precision. The pilots felt a mixture of awe and fear, knowing that this moment was only the beginning. Humanity had not yet faced its enemy directly, but the awakening of the Black Fleet had already changed the equation. Citizens continued to watch in amazement as the sky darkened with the presence of the fleet. Massive vessels stretched across the horizon, casting shadows over cities, forests, and oceans. People gasped, pointed, and whispered to one another. News channels broadcast live, though the commentators struggled to find words that could match the spectacle. Across the planet, millions of people experienced a mix of fear and hope, unlike anything they had ever felt. Humanity had always wondered what it would be like to face a force from the stars, and now they were seeing it. Not the enemy, but their own defenders rising to meet the challenge. In control centers beneath the surface, engineers monitored every system, checking propulsion, weapons, energy flow, and communications. Pilots ran final calibrations, tested responsiveness, and practiced maneuvers that would soon be critical in battle. Commanders coordinated formations, calculated trajectories, and refined strategies that accounted for every possibility. The Black Fleet was alive with energy, moving as one and ready to defend the planet at all costs. Every person involved understood that failure was not an option. Humanity depended on them, and they would not let the species down. The first direct contact with the Empire's scouts came sooner than expected. Small alien vessels sent to observe and intimidate approached Earth cautiously. They had no idea what awaited them. As they drew closer, the Black Fleet responded with precision. Ships shifted positions, creating barriers and defensive formations. Sensors tracked every movement, predicting trajectories and countering threats, almost instinctively. The pilots could feel the energy of the ships responding to their commands, guiding them with a subtle intelligence that seemed to anticipate the enemy's moves. For the first time, humans were no longer on the defensive. They were ready to challenge the invaders. Ordinary people could sense the tension rising. In towns and cities, the distant hum of engines and the flicker of strange lights created an atmosphere of anticipation. Communities gathered, some standing in awe, others whispering prayers, and many simply watching, unsure of what would happen next. The awakening of the Black Fleet had given humanity a moment to breathe, a moment to believe that survival was possible. The enemy had not yet attacked, but the balance of power had already shifted. Humanity was no longer helpless. As night fell, the Black Fleet continued to rise. Ships moved silently across the skies, their engines creating clouds of charged energy that lit up the darkness. Pilots practiced maneuvers, engineers monitored systems, and commanders issued orders with calm precision. Every detail mattered. The Empire's scouts continued to probe, unaware that their approach was being carefully monitored and countered. The Black Fleet's emergence was a warning and a promise. Earth would not surrender quietly, and humans had found strength they never knew they possessed. Families in cities watched the night sky, unable to look away. Children clutched their parents wide-eyed as flashes of light and shadow danced across the horizon. People whispered to one another, speculating on what they were witnessing, feeling a sense of awe and hope. The awakening of the Black Fleet had become a symbol, a sign that humanity could rise to meet even the greatest threats. Fear had not disappeared, but it had been tempered by courage, anticipation, and the knowledge that something extraordinary had awakened to protect them. In our hidden command centers, the final preparations were complete. Pilots and engineers took a moment to look at one another, sharing silent acknowledgement of what they were about to do. The Black Fleet had risen, but the real test was still ahead. The Empire's forces were vast, powerful, and advanced, but humanity had a secret advantage: preparation, unity, and the determination to protect their world at any cost. Every member of the Black Fleet understood that this moment was not just about technology, it was about courage, resolve, and the human spirit. The Empire, still monitoring from orbit, grew increasingly concerned. Their sensors could detect the energy surges, the movement of ships, and the precision of maneuvers. Commands were issued, yet their scouts were unable to predict or counter the unfolding events. They had assumed that humanity would collapse, under fear that surrender would be inevitable. But now they realized they were facing something far greater than a primitive species. Earth had been preparing quietly for decades, and the awakening of the Black Fleet had revealed a strength they had never anticipated. As the hours passed, the Black Fleet continued to assemble, moving into formations designed for defense and counterattack. Pilots communicated silently, reading each other's intentions, guiding their ships with near-perfect coordination. Engineers monitored every system, adjusting power flows and energy outputs to ensure maximum efficiency. Commanders observed and directed, ensuring that every move was precise, calculated, and effective. Humanity had created something extraordinary, something that could challenge even the most advanced force in the galaxy. The night deepened, and the world held its breath. Citizens continued to watch the sky, sensing the tension and energy, even if they did not fully understand it. The Black Fleet had risen and the balance of power had shifted. Fear remained, but hope had returned, along with the knowledge that humanity had a chance. The first day of direct confrontation had not yet arrived, but the awakening of the Black Fleet had already changed everything. Humans were no longer helpless observers. They were participants in a battle for survival, guided by courage, ingenuity, and the indomitable human spirit. By the end of the night, the Black Fleet had established its presence in the skies above Earth. Citizens watched in awe, some whispering prayers, others holding loved ones close, and many simply staring, unable to comprehend the scale of what they were seeing. The Empire's forces remained in orbit, powerful and imposing, yet for the first time uncertainty crept into their calculations. Humanity had awakened something they could not predict, a four. The first real confrontation began quietly, almost unexpectedly, yet the tension was unbearable. The Black Fleet had risen from its hidden bases and assembled in formations that reflected years of preparation. But now the challenge was no longer theoretical. The Empire's forces, vast and advanced, began to move closer, their ships cutting through space with precision and purpose. For the first time, humanity would not only witness, but participate in a battle that could decide the fate of the planet. The skies above Earth darkened as the alien vessels approached. Ordinary citizens, still unaware of the exact scale of the Black Fleet, could see flashes of light and movement against the stars. Communities stopped their routines, looking upward in fear and curiosity. Families held each other tightly, unsure of what they were about to witness. Children whispered questions they could not fully understand, while adults tried to reassure themselves as much as the people around them. Even as panic lingered, hope had begun to take root. The Black Fleet had risen, and humanity was no longer completely powerless. Beneath the surface, pilots and engineers prepared for the engagement. Every system was checked again, every instrument verified. Pilots ran simulations, running through maneuvers they had practiced countless times, while engineers monitored energy flows and weapon systems. The ships themselves seemed almost alive, responding to the commands of their crews with a precision that defied belief. Commanders coordinated strategies, calculating trajectories, anticipating enemy movements, and preparing for every possible scenario. Humanity's survival depended on their skill, coordination, and courage. There could be no mistakes. The Empire's scouts were the first to encounter resistance. Small vessels probing Earth's defenses approached cautiously, scanning for weak points. They were met with unexpected precision. Black Fleet ships moved swiftly, appearing and disappearing through stealth systems that the enemy could not detect. They blocked approaches, disrupted communications, and forced the scouts to retreat in ways that seemed impossible. Pilots experienced a mixture of adrenaline and awe, realizing that for the first time in history, humans were not just defending, they were controlling the battlefield. From the ground, people could feel the changes in the sky, even if they could not see every detail. Flashes of energy streaked across the atmosphere, creating clouds of light that reflected off cities, oceans, and forests. The hum of engines reached into homes, a low vibration that reminded everyone that something extraordinary was unfolding above them. Citizens watched with a mixture of fear and fascination, feeling the weight of history in every movement they saw. Humanity had been cornered, threatened, and terrified, but now it was fighting back, quietly, precisely, and with an intelligence that the Empire had not anticipated. As the battle escalated, the scale of the Black Fleet's coordination became evident. Ships moved in formations designed to protect one another, create barriers, and maximize their effectiveness against the enemy. Pilots communicated through subtle signals, understanding each other without words. Engineers adjusted energy outputs, redistributed power, and ensured that every system functioned flawlessly. Commanders monitored the battlefield, making split-second decisions that would determine the outcome of the engagement. Every move was calculated, every action mattered, and the human crews inside these ships were operating at the peak of skill and determination. The first direct clash occurred when A group of Empire vessels attempted to break through the defensive formations near major population centers. Black Fleet ships responded immediately, intercepting the attackers before they could reach the atmosphere. The sky lit up with bursts of energy, streaks of light that zigzagged across the horizon. Pilots felt their hearts pound as they maneuvered, their ships with precision, dodging attacks and striking with calculated force. Engineers monitored the feedback, ensuring that the weapon systems responded instantly, while commanders directed the battle with a clarity and focus born from years of preparation. Ordinary people watched the spectacle from below, unable to comprehend the full scale but sensing the intensity of the struggle. Windows reflected streaks of light. Streets were quiet as families gathered to observe, and even the youngest children felt the weight of the moment. Some whispered prayers, others held their loved ones tightly, and many simply stared, caught between fear and awe. Humanity had never faced anything like this. The Black Fleet was not only defending the planet, it was showing that humans could rise to meet a threat that seemed unstoppable. The Empire, surprised by the effectiveness of the Black Fleet, began to adapt. Their ships moved more cautiously, attempting to find weaknesses, but the humans were always one step ahead. The Black Fleet used advanced technology, stealth maneuvers, and carefully calculated attacks to keep the enemy at bay. Pilots felt a sense of exhilaration mixed with responsibility, knowing that failure could mean disaster, not just for themselves but for millions of people on the planet below. Engineers worked tirelessly, recalibrating systems in real time, ensuring that every attack and defense was executed flawlessly. As the battle continued, the human crews realized something extraordinary. The ships seemed to respond not only to their commands but to their intentions. Pilots who acted with confidence found their vessels moving more smoothly, energy flowing more efficiently, and weapons responding faster. Those who hesitated felt delays, subtle but noticeable. It was as if the Black Fleet had a consciousness shaped by human courage and determination. The technology was advanced, yes, but the heart and spirit of humanity gave it life, turning machines into extensions of the people inside them. Across the planet, people began to feel a shift in perspective. Fear was still present, but it was now mixed with pride and hope. Humanity had faced impossible odds and, for the first time, was not only resisting but achieving victories. News broadcasts tried to describe the events, but even the most experienced reporters struggled to find words. Incredible, unbelievable, and miraculous were often repeated, yet none could fully capture the courage and coordination unfolding in the skies above. Citizens whispered to each other, sharing stories of bravery and survival, realizing that the impossible was now being challenged in real time. The intensity of the engagement increased. Larger vessels from the Empire attempted to break through, deploying advanced weapons and overwhelming numbers. Black Fleet ships responded with speed and strategy, using superior maneuverability and coordination to outmatch their opponents. Pilots relied on instincts honed through training, engineers adapted to unexpected challenges, and commanders issued instructions that kept the entire formation synchronized. Every successful maneuver, every repelled attack was a reminder that humanity was not powerless. Amid the chaos, small acts of bravery became visible. Pilots risked collisions to protect others, engineers adjusted systems mid-flight to prevent catastrophic failures, and commanders made rapid decisions that saved lives. Ordinary humans were performing extraordinary feats, guided not just by technology but by courage, intuition, and the unshakable desire to survive and protect. Every action mattered, every decision carried weight, and the combined effort of the HFY Black Fleet and its crews was a testament to what humanity could achieve when united against a common threat. From the ground, the citizens' perspective shifted again. Fear transformed into hope as the Black Fleet demonstrated that humans could resist the Empire's might. Families hugged each other tightly, communities celebrated small victories, and people shared stories of bravery across neighborhoods. Even those who were terrified found solace in the knowledge that humanity was fighting back, and that ordinary people could contribute in unseen ways by staying calm, supporting one another, and keeping faith in the larger effort. As hours turned into A full day of battle, the scale of human coordination became clear. The Black Fleet was not merely defending, it was controlling the fight, adapting to every attack and learning in real time. Pilots communicated silently, ships moved with near-perfect synchronization, and engineers ensured every system functioned flawlessly. The Empire's forces, once confident, now faced the unanticipated reality of a species that had prepared, adapted, and refused to surrender. Humanity had proven that courage, preparation, and unity could turn the tide even against overwhelming odds. By the end of the first major confrontation, the results were astonishing. The Black Fleet had successfully repelled the initial wave of the Empire's assault. Enemy ships retreated, some damaged beyond repair, leaving the skies temporarily calm. Pilots and crews took a moment to catch their breath. Engineers ran final checks and commanders assessed the situation for the next stage of engagement. Humanity had survived not by luck, but by skill, courage, and the remarkable coordination of people who had refused to bow to fear. Even as the temporary calm settled over Earth, citizens knew that this was only the beginning. The Empire would not give up easily, and the next attack could be even more dangerous. Yet, for the first time, humanity felt a sense of pride and confidence. People could see that they were capable of standing against forces far greater than themselves. The Black Fleet had proven that humans could fight, adapt, and survive. Ordinary people watching from their homes and streets began to believe in. The aftermath of the battle was both quiet and overwhelming. The sky, once filled with flashes of energy and the hum of engines, slowly returned to a more peaceful state. For the first time in days, humans could look upward without immediately sensing the threat of the Empire. The Black Fleet had done what few had thought possible. It had pushed back an enemy that seemed unstoppable, and for the first time, Earth could breathe. Yet the calm was fragile, and everyone understood that the war was far from over. Across cities, towns, and villages, people poured into the streets. Families hugged tightly, some crying, some laughing, and many simply standing in awe of what had just occurred. Stories began to circulate almost immediately. Pilots performing daring maneuvers, ships intercepting alien vessels with unimaginable speed, and engineers keeping systems running perfectly even under extreme pressure. Ordinary people had witnessed extraordinary events, and the collective feeling was one of pride, relief, and wonder. Humanity had survived something incredible, and now there was proof that survival was not only possible but achievable through courage, preparation, and unity. The pilots and crews of the Black Fleet returned to their hidden bases slowly, checking systems and running diagnostics. There was no celebration yet, for they knew the Empire was still out there. But there was a sense of accomplishment, a recognition that their training, preparation, and determination had paid off. Engineers reviewed every detail, analyzing energy flows, weapons systems, and propulsion data to ensure everything had functioned flawlessly. Commanders debriefed their teams, emphasizing lessons learned, strategies refined, and plans for the next engagement. For the first time, humans felt not just fear but control. The Black Fleet had proven that it could protect Earth. On the ground, ordinary people began to regain a sense of normalcy, though the events of the past days could not easily be forgotten. Conversations shifted from panic to reflection, from fear to understanding. People spoke of bravery, teamwork, and courage. Children asked questions, wide-eyed, about the ships and the pilots, and adults explained as best they could, sharing hope and confidence without hiding the danger that still lingered. Communities organized relief efforts for those affected by the chaos, from minor structural damages to the overwhelming stress that had gripped everyone. Even in the midst of uncertainty, humanity showed resilience, solidarity, and compassion. The Empire, observing from orbit, was forced to reconsider its approach. Their forces had expected to intimidate, overwhelm, and conquer with ease. Yet Earth's resistance had proven far more effective than anticipated. Reports of the Black Fleet's capabilities reached alien command centers, creating confusion and hesitation. The humans they had underestimated had not only survived, but had repelled the initial assault. For the first time, the Empire faced a species that had the courage, intelligence, and preparation to challenge their dominance. They would retreat, regroup, and reconsider. But the message was clear. Earth would not surrender quietly. In hidden control rooms beneath oceans, mountains, and deserts, the Black Fleet continued to operate. Pilots and engineers worked tirelessly, reviewing every maneuver, every engagement, and every system performance. They analyzed weaknesses, prepared for future threats, and reinforced the belief that the planet could defend itself. The ships, advanced as they were, required not just technology, but the courage and coordination of their human crews. Humanity had discovered a remarkable truth. When skill, determination, and unity were combined, even the most advanced threats could be resisted. Citizens across the world began to realize that they were part of something larger than themselves. Ordinary actions, staying calm, helping neighbors, protecting families, had contributed to the resilience of the planet. Humanity had always relied on courage in moments of crisis, and now that courage was amplified by preparation, innovation, and a shared sense of purpose, communities came together in new ways, inspired by the bravery they had witnessed in the skies and below the surface. The Black Fleet had become a symbol of what humans could achieve when united, and hope spread in ways that no one could ignore. The pilots, in particular, felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. They had faced something unimaginable and come out alive. Their training had been tested to the fullest, and they had proven that humans could rise to meet extraordinary challenges. Engineers felt a similar sense of accomplishment, knowing that every system they had designed, maintained, and monitored had performed perfectly under pressure. Commanders felt pride in their crews, recognizing the skill, focus, and courage that had turned the tide of battle. In these hidden bases, humanity's defenders understood that the fight was not over, but they had gained confidence that they could face what came next. Above ground, the citizens of Earth began to rebuild not just physical structures, but their sense of security. Streets that had been empty in fear were filled again with life. Markets reopened, communication resumed, and the daily rhythm of humanity slowly returned. People shared stories of the Black Fleet's engagement, describing flashes of light in the skies, maneuvers that seemed impossible, and the bravery of humans who had piloted ships against an overwhelming force. Hope and resilience became contagious, and humanity's spirit grew stronger with every retelling of the events. Even as the Empire retreated to regroup, the Black Fleet remained vigilant. Ships patrolled strategically, ensuring that no immediate threat could reach populated areas. Pilots maintained readiness, knowing that the alien forces were likely planning a counterattack. Engineers continued to optimize systems, keeping the fleet in peak condition. Commanders refined strategies, learning from every encounter and preparing for the possibility of further confrontations. Humanity had survived the first battle, but they had also gained something greater than victory: confidence in their ability to endure, adapt, and fight when necessary. Communities and governments began to coordinate on a global scale. People shared information, resources, and strategies for protection. Local efforts combined into national initiatives, and nations collaborated to ensure that the planet could remain resilient. The battle had shown that unity was humanity's greatest strength, and this understanding spread quickly. Ordinary citizens who had felt powerless now found that their contributions, whether in preparation, support, or morale, were meaningful. Courage was no longer just a quality of pilots or soldiers. It was a shared trait that united every human being on the planet. As days passed, the planet gradually shifted from tension to cautious optimism. Humanity had faced the impossible and survived. The Black Fleet had proven that preparation, skill, and courage could counter even the most advanced adversaries. Citizens looked to the sky not only with fear but also with pride and confidence. They had witnessed the awakening of a hidden force, a symbol of human ingenuity and determination, and realized that they were capable of far more than they had imagined. The Black Fleet, while remaining vigilant, began to integrate more closely with global defense initiatives. Pilots trained for future scenarios, engineers continued to improve systems, and commanders strategized for every possible contingency. Humanity had learned the importance of readiness, coordination, and the use of knowledge in the face of unprecedented threats. The Empire's retreat had shown that even overwhelming power could be challenged with intelligence, bravery, and perseverance. Communities continued to celebrate small victories. Families shared stories, children learned about the bravery of the pilots and crews, and neighbors helped one another rebuild and recover. Hope became tangible and fear began to fade. replaced by a growing confidence that humans could face even the greatest challenges together. Ordinary people recognized that courage was not just in the skies but in every action they took to protect, support, and sustain their communities. As weeks passed, Earth adjusted to a new reality. The Empire remained a distant threat, but the planet was no longer defenseless. Humanity had discovered a new strength within itself, a combination of preparation, unity, courage, and adaptability. The Black Fleet had not only defended the planet, but had inspired every person to believe in the power of resilience. The skies, once a source of fear, had become a symbol of hope and human potential. By the end of this period, humanity had transformed. People were no longer merely reacting to threats. They were anticipating, preparing, and collaborating on a scale never seen before. Citizens, governments, and the Black Fleet worked together to ensure that Earth could withstand anything that might come. The first battle had been terrifying, yes, but it had also proven that humans could rise above fear, harness courage, and achieve the extraordinary. In the end, the planet stood stronger, wiser, and united. The Black Fleet remained a silent guardian, a reminder of the courage, ingenuity, and determination that had saved humanity. Citizens continued their daily lives with a new sense of purpose, inspired by the bravery they had witnessed and the knowledge that ordinary humans could achieve extraordinary things when faced with unimaginable threats. Earth had survived not by chance but by preparation, courage, and the unshakable spirit of humanity. And so, the planet looked to the future with hope. Humanity had faced the impossible and emerged victorious not through power alone but through res.